I saw a car that totally changed my life. Hey guys, Todd with 306 Foxbody. Here's what I've been up to. I haven't been working on the car very much because I want to intercool it. So anybody that's been watching the last few videos, you know I want to intercool the Windsor. And I just don't want to slap an intercooler on the front of this car. I don't want to butcher the front end on it. Some people would say that I've probably taken this car too far because technically it is a rare car, but I'm probably going to be the only guy that owns this car for a long time yet. And I don't want to do anything to, I'll just say, butcher it any further. I wanted to keep the car looking the way it should. I don't want to do anything else to the exterior of it. I don't want to do anything to the interior. Maybe eventually I'll take out the bar for the roll cage where I get in, because I'm not getting any younger. But I've been watching all kinds of videos on YouTube. I've been looking at old magazines on anything intercooling related. I've been watching videos on guys that are intercooling their imports, their rotary engines, Audis, BMWs, hyper sports cars or exotic sports cars, if you will, right down to the guys with the muscle cars, everything under the sun, dyno sessions. And the thing I've kind of learned was, when you look at all the intakes that are out there for almost anything, not just the small block Ford and everything else, when you look at all the intakes that are out there, I think from what I see and what I know now, well, I kind of knew this a little bit, I think, there isn't, the vast majority of intake manifolds for anything are just the next person trying to reinvent the wheel. Don't get me wrong, there is intake manifolds that are designed where the angle going to the head and the line of sight to the intake valve, or stuff like that. There's a bit of science behind it for cylinder filling. Of course, longer runner intakes will promote torque versus a shorter runner intake. But when you look at all the exotic intake manifolds, right from the short runner Hartmann to the the BXR with the long runners and everything else, there's no real right or wrong way to do this. Well, there is wrong ways, but there's more than one way to do it. But if you have a car that's probably making conservatively 600 or 650 horsepower, or whatever, that's just a number, and you want to intercool it, and maybe you'll turn up the boost a little bit. I'm running around 9 psi. I might venture into that 10 or 11 psi mark, but I want to stay on pump gas. I don't want to get too crazy with it. It's already crazy enough, and I guess what I'm trying to say here is, whatever intake manifold is on this car, if it kills torque, if it promotes torque, if it makes horsepower, if it kills a little bit of horsepower, it really doesn't matter at the end of the day, because I'm not competitively competing with it. I'm not racing it like I used to. I want to make that motor live a little nicer under the hood, under boost, on pump gas. And here's what I'm going with. Now, I picked up a Super Victor intake from my buddy Jarrett. He was gracious enough to give me a smoking deal on it, but I don't have the heart to cut this one up. So I've got this one up here. I got a cheaper one coming that it'll be my test mule. I can butcher it. But my idea is, If you look at these runners, they're about 4 inches long. What if a guy milled off about 1 inch off the top of the intake and widened this out, kind of made some kind of... Wait a minute, guys, instead of me explaining it, let me know what you think. That's my idea. It's not like I invented it or anything, but this is just my mock-up, just to see how it might look. And actually, as it sits, it's sitting 11 inches high, or about 11 1/4 inches high. I would probably make this lid about another 1/2 inch higher. So the actual intake would be milled down about 1 inch. And I wish I could have shown how I would have it look inside, but anyways, this is typical of what we've normally would see with a sheet metal, aluminum, intercooled intake. The whole idea with this is, like somebody told me, well, just get a Holly high ram for this. That will go under the hood without an intercooler. I want to keep the stock hood on this car and have the intercooler in the intake. So that's our goal. With this type of a setup, it'll actually work. So we probably got about 1/2 inch of room to spare for height. And yeah, it's a place to start. So basically it'll be like an igloo style setup. So we're gonna have this base that the intercooler will actually sit in the base. And then from here up is a lid. So it's not gonna be one uniform piece, obviously. So we're having the base, the intercooler, and then the lid will go on top. So that's kind of how we're gonna make this work. But basically, mill it down, make a platform for an intercooler, about a 3-inch intercooler to sit in here, and then you have your lid on top. You could get it all within less than 12 inches because the top of my intake elbow to the china wall, or the base of the intake manifold, is about 11.5, 11 3/4 inches. So if this one's roughly 6 inches tall, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, you mill it down, yeah, there's room. So I'm going to try it. Someone might say that, yeah, you're going to kill torque, or you're going to do this, you're going to do that, but I want to be able to say that I did it or tried it. And I certainly don't mind trying something and failing rather than saying I wish I would have tried. So I got my air conditioning going in. Wouldn't that be kind of cool to utilize that as a chiller for the air to water intercooler? I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I'm kind of making a tall order right here. So that's where I'm at with this intercooler idea. You know, I still have to laugh. Like, I've had this car for 30 years, and it was in around November of 1990 I got my first car, and it was an 83 Mustang GT. I never would have thought in a million years I'd be still playing around with these cars. I remember my first car, I was more concerned with the stereo in it, taking the factory cassette deck out and putting I had a pull-out cassette player, and then I went to Radio Shack Electronics, and I got one of those, it was an equalizer slash amplifier, and I put it in the dash above the glove box between the vents. I got another bezel to do that. And of course, 1 amp becomes 2 amps, so then becomes bigger amps and subs in the back. But I found out, I remember the day that the Foxbody, because that was just a car at the time. For me, it was just my first car. But I remember the day that the Foxbody bug dug hard. I saw a car that totally changed my life. And looking back, I can't deny that it didn't change my life. So here I am, I'm 20 years old. I'm living at my parents' house yet. I come out of the house, probably hop in my car. I make it about 3 or 4 doors down the street. And small town Esterhazy, where I grew up, everybody knows everybody. In fact, the people that live 3 doors down, the gentleman and the family that lived there, well, my dad grew up with this fellow. It was one of his best friends. But I pull out of my parents' driveway, I'm going down the street, and there's an 84 Mustang GT parked there like no other Mustang GT I've ever seen in my life. Well, what do? You pull over, you go in the door, you knock on the door, and there was a young fella, well, he was older than me, he's probably, I'm guessing, in his 20s, was visiting the house. He had this 84 Mustang GT, and I said, hey, can you come tell me about this car? And he said, yeah, this is the ground effects packages from a company called Seline Autosport. They're from California. It had a roll cage in it. It had the mesh wheels. It had the correct wing on the back. It was, I think it was even a T-top car. It was silver. It was lowered. It was everything that I would have thought would have seen in a magazine. But it was right after that I started picking up Muscle Mustangs and Fast Forwards and other magazines. So this car changed my life. So the fella told me all about the car, and I probably went for a rip down to the local confectionery, to TriStar, and go up to the magazine rack. Guys, remember doing that? You used to go up to the magazine rack and you'd be looking Super Ford, Muscle Mustangs and Fast Forwards, 5.0 magazine. You couldn't wait for the next issue to come out. I still have a lot of those issues. A lot of those issues traveled with me to where I used to work. They would be in my lunch kit, usually a couple issues. Read them front to back over and over. The Seline Mustang ads were on the back where you could pick up the parts. And that's the day that bug bit me hard. It must have been, well, I think it was spring of 1991. And I'm sure a lot of us still have those magazines. I know I do. So shortly after that, my 83 GT I ordered a Seline ground effects package and wing. I lived in Grenfell, Saskatchewan, Schlamp's Tire Craft. They were a distributor or a dealer for American racing wheels. So I got the white 4-lug American racing wheels with a polished lip. Had them on the car for a while. It was wrapped in Eagle ST tires. And I remember I finally got some lowering springs for it because it just didn't quite look right, because I already had the ground effects on the car. I made the stripes down the side of the car. I experimented. I thought I'll try with some electrical tape. So anyways, I did one side of the car with electrical tape. And I told my parents, I said, hey, that looks really good. I think I'm going to go buy those stripes. They said, well, you did one side, just do the other side. If the stripes fall off, then buy it. So I did the second side of the car. So my Seline Stripe kit was black electrical tape, put on very carefully. It wasn't cheesy. It actually looked decent. And my Seline logo across the windshield was made out of Mac Tack from the Home Hardware. Shortly after that, I was dabbling with the idea of putting a fuel-injected 302 in the car. And a couple guys that owned one of the local body shops had a parts car, like an 88 Mustang, 5-liter LX coupe. And they said, hey, we'll give you a smoking deal on the engine, wiring harness, everything you need to put fuel injection in your car. So my dad and my brother and I were at Percival Mercury in Regina, Saskatchewan. That's our capital city of our province. And I went to the parts department at Percival Mercury. And my brother said, I asked the parts guy or service guy, I said, hey, do you guys sell the schematics for like an 88 5-liter Mustang, or can a guy get a copy of them somehow? And the guy said, hey, well, what are you trying to do? And I said, well, I want to put a fuel-injected 302 in my 83 Mustang GT. And I guess the guy said, oh, you'll never do that. I forgot about that, but my brother reminded me that I got quite upset. And I said, okay, fine, whatever. We left, and when I went back home, I talked to our local Ford dealership, and those guys were awesome. They, Merritt Ford, they lent me the schematics. My brother was a draftsman at the potash mine. Chris scanned the full-size schematics for the 88 5-liter Mustang. And then the race was on. My dad actually took the upper plenum. He polished it. We painted the motor. We put the motor in. That's what got me started. And then wasn't long after this came along, but that's another story. So anyways, that's where we're at with the intercooler project. We're still in the planning and development stages. And like I said, that first car, it changed my life. I hope I could see that car again someday. I was in contact with a fellow that was the next gentleman that owned the car. I kind of know where it is, but not exactly. And, you know, I respect the fellow's privacy, but I'd love to see that car. That car changed my life since spring of 1991. Anyways, guys, that's what I've been up to. Hope everybody's doing well. And I can't wait till I actually start pulling some wrenches on this car and doing a few more things to it. Little tidy up jobs, intercooler job, work on the air conditioning some more. But hope everybody's doing good, and we will catch you in the next video. Cheers.